Hey everybody, today we're going to do a video of the 0.0.18 early access update for the Grape Juice Isometrics plugin. So what this is a look at all the new features that have released since .16, which are going to early access this week, but will eventually roll into the public release versions once they've been tested, etc. So getting into it, remember this is for version 7.9 of Foundry and version 18 of the Isometrics plugin during early access. So if you're just getting started with using Isometric in Foundry VTT, I recommend checking out my previous video. So there's one that's we did at the first early access release, and that shows how to use walls and all the basic stuff. And then there was an early access update that showed some of the more advanced features. This is the third video, so if you're lost and you want to just get started from the very beginning, I recommend checking out the previous links. I'll put them in the description below. So first of all, congratulations Grape Juice on getting this pretty massive plugin that enables a new type of play in Foundry VTT out into the public release. It's absolutely amazing how much work Grape Juice has put into this, so massive thanks from the community that likes playing in Isometric. And Grape Juice asked me to send out a couple of other thanks, specifically to the code contributors who helped really put a lot of the heavyweight effort into this release. So Greg D. Wilson is the person who did the IsoFace plugin, and that allows, we'll show it, but that's the one that allows the character tokens to like face in multiple directions. And then the Ripper 93 put in some pretty massive performance upgrades to how the line of sight stuff is calculated, so it doesn't have to be done every frame and can allow the scenes to get a lot higher scale into some of the more complex scenes. Massive achievement there, as well as a whole bunch of tweaks and modifications to some settings and UI stuff that hopefully will make the whole thing easier to use and allow people to opt in and opt out of certain features. And then of course, thanks to the creators that are putting in free content into the plugin so people can just try and get started off of some of the stuff that's inside the compendiums. There's a growing Discord community as well, so if you're liking this, you want to see what other people are doing, check out the Grape Juice Isometric Discord community. Huge thanks to the people there who are helping each other out, as well as posting screenshots of the cool stuff they're doing in their games. So let's get into it. What we're going to cover. I'm going to have links down below to show the timestamps for the various new features. But there's the old stuff that we're not going to cover. So that's sort of the how to use the grid and how to make a wall, how to make a door, that sort of stuff. But then getting into the new things, we're going to go through it bit by bit, and I'm going to show these new features, and many times I'm just going to show it with a demo. So it could be a long video. I want to jump right into it, so let's get going. First of all, let's get into the new settings. If you open up the Grape Juice Isometrics settings in the module settings, you're going to see check marks, and these are changing over time as maybe they get tweaked towards the final release. But you're going to see settings in here so that you can turn on and turn off specific features that are maybe optional. The first two, though, I want to point out are user-specific. That means every user needs to pick what their default setting is going to be, whether they want the isometric keyboard, so sort of like whether or not the keys go up and down or whether they go diagonally. Everyone's going to have to like set their own personal preference for that, as well as the isometric canvas panning. The things below that, though, are GM specific or are GM global settings that if the GM sets it, it'll set it for everybody. So check these out. It's an ability to turn on, turn off certain things. Some of them are just sort of UI and cosmetic. Other things are the default behavior of some of the advanced features of the Isometric plugin, which we'll get into. Next up, let's get into IsoFace. So for those that are generating their tokens in something like HeroForge, you've probably seen this already. But if you have art where you have different versions of the token art facing in different directions, now, even in an isometric view, you can have the art change to reflect the rotation of the token. So let's get into it and let's make one. So these are the settings that you'll need, and it's like the name of the file. So you're going to need to append onto the name of the file, though a lot of the kind of pre-made art that's out there from the creators has these names attached to it. So if you're using 8-sided, these are the names that you use for each of the different directions. And then 4-sided are the same names, you just kind of leave out some of the directions. And then 2-sided, the names are different, it's just front and back. And then it'll mirror them appropriately for the other side. So let me jump into Foundry and let's make one of these tokens. So first of all, I'm going to create a new actor. So I'm going to go in here and create a new actor, call it, Bob. And let's get in and let's drag Bob onto the screen here. So here's Bob. I'm going to go into Bob's token art, into the image, and I'm going to load up, and I've got some IsoFace files ready to go in my compendium here. So I've got IsoFace, and I'm going to bring up kind of here, and boost up the resolution a little bit so you can see it. So here I've got this art with the character with all the file names set up the way that they're supposed to be. So I just have to pick one of them. I tend to pick the front right one just in case IsoFace is turned off. And I pick that one, and I select it, right? And I'm going to just go and grab the token path. So I update that, and I'm going to go and just kind of set it for the art as well here. And so now Bob is here, and Bob is just a normal token that happens to have that naming structure with the other files in the same directory. So now what I can do is, let me just go into the prototype token and assign them. And in this prototype token, I can go now to this isometric face setting that's around here, right? So I'm going to set this to multi-image 8, right, and hit update. And now when I close this down, when I move him, I might have to like refresh the screen or something. All right, so that's the old token. So it's the prototype that's in there. So now when I grab Bob, drag Bob to the screen here, Bob is going to rotate perfectly like that. How cool is that? All right, so Bob changes directions, and I can do all the key, I think it's control and mouse wheel to change which rotation it goes. So I can just do it with the mouse wheel there, or I can do it with shift and the arrow keys. Now sometimes you have art that is, you know, I only have one picture of the art, but the art isn't facing one direction or another. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag out a beholder. I already made that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new actor. I'm going to create it BB Beholder. And let's go to the prototype token, and let's make the token 2 squares by 2 squares, and let's grab its art. So I'm going to go into my compendium, I'm going to go into my 3D files, and here's a beholder that I drew. Drag it onto the screen. And so now I only have this version of the art. But what I can do is I can open it up, and I can use the mirror mode. So if I only have one piece of art, I can still get a little bit of that facing by putting it in mirror mode. Now the default facing is for it to be down and to the right, but my art is down and to the left. So I'm just going to check that box so that it you know, is the opposite. And now when I change him and I move him, he's going to move in the correct direction. How cool is that? So even that, just with one piece of art, already looks more interactive. And if I hold down shift, I can do it in place if I just want to like have this guy acting a little bit as he's talking to the characters. So there you go. There's IsoFace. It is one of my favorite kind of like showstopper modules to work with isometric. And now it's neat that it's kind of embedded in here, and it comes with the early access and will eventually come with the full release. So now, just to like show a little bit of some amazing stuff that you can do, let me go and make sure that this is a little bit extra. I'm going to turn on the token attacher module, and I'm going to show something that I realized. Say like that's the unit commander, and maybe I have like a whole squad of these guys. So I can grab a whole bunch of these, and they'll all move as a unit. Or I can use the token attacher module to enter selection mode. Select a whole bunch of these. Oops. Attach them to the primary one. So now Bob is like the unit commander here. But the coolest part is that as Bob rotates, these guys are going to rotate around. So if they're rotating in formations, right, he's like their sergeant, right? He can rotate them around himself like that, either with the scroll wheel. So I just think this looks super cool. So moving on, the next thing is a feature where you can have a new button to toggle whether or not a tile gets brought on as isometric or just uses the flat version. So let me explain. So I've got a really neat animated kind of like spell effect. It's like a magic circle or something. But when I bring it in here, the Foundry, the isometric plugin is automatically rotating it, basically unrotating it, so that it assumes the art is already from an isometric camera angle. But a lot of the stuff that you find out there that's sort of like ground effects or a spell effect isn't built for isometric. It's more top down. So if you wanted to bring this in and have it like flush with the floor, there's a new button for that, and it's down here. So down over here there's a button, and you turn it off, it'll disable that automatic translation, and now we've got just kind of like a normal rotation that's been brought in so that it looks like it's on the floor. So you can see the massive difference that makes between here and here. So maybe this is like some unholy, you know, magic thing. So now I can bring in one of my tokens. So let's bring in Bob, right, and say Bob's got this aura around him, and I can token attach it, this tile, and attach it, close here. Now the aura is going to move with Bob. All right, the next thing I want to do is show a demo of the tile layer tool, which I find useful when you got to change which tile is in front of another tile really quickly. So I've got two ships, and I've got like a ground effect that I showed before on the ground there, and I can see that these tiles are just movable. So I'm going to keep it simple. So this tile, though, you know, maybe the ship is going to pull up alongside this other ship, right, over here, and it's going to be really cool. Like maybe the bad guys are going to board the good guy ship or something, but then the illusion breaks, right? If I chose the wrong side accidentally, here you go. One tile is above the other tile incorrectly, right? That sail should be in front of the boat there, not behind it. It kind of breaks the illusion. So the way you would normally fix this is by right-clicking, and then like this up and down control comes in. But when you have a lot of these things, that can be really hard to figure out and organize. So there's a new setting in here, and it's right here. It is the token layer tool. So now you can just drag these up and down, and you can visually see them. So like lower down is going to be closer to the camera, and farther back is going to be on the background. So I want that teleportation circle all the way in the back, and I want the red dragon, which is the one with these big red sails here in front, and that way that works correctly. Now imagine it pulls up here, and then they disconnect for a bit of the fight, and then it comes back over here, and now I need it to be the opposite. I can really quickly in the fight just drag that there, and now it's going to look correct. So this can be incredibly useful if you have like a complex scene with, you know, just dozens and dozens, and you can even like control click and move two at a time, and you can from here, if you're having, it's a really easy way to like select and make sure you've got the correct one selected, and then you can see the little gear icon is right there if you want to open up the settings. So this tile layer tool can make working with tiles really quick, even if you're not using your mouse to like select them by pixels, but rather kind of selecting them in this menu here. So that can be really useful. Right, so the next thing we want to demo is the position token tool. So to do that, we're going to go back to our gaming table, and we're going to play with BB Beholder again. Let me go find him. So here's this beholder. So the beholder's cool, but it's not really imposing and big enough. So normally you'd pull out something like hex token support or hex size support, and use its ability to kind of alter that. And then the earlier versions had like a way to change the anchor point, but now this is different. So now in the isometric plugin, if I go to its image, first of all, if I go to its image, you'll see that there's the sprite anchor X and the sprite anchor Y. Well, now I can modify that by hitting this position token. And now when I move my mouse over and in the base of the image, I can actually drag and move this, you know, I can move the actual art to have it centered perfectly. So maybe I want it centered with this thing here, or maybe I want it centered on where the shadow is, something like that. And then if I can still scale it up and down using the scaling tool like that, or I believe if the position's turned on, and I don't quite have this working yet, you hold down the shift key and you can use your scroll wheel to make it get bigger, and then I have to hit the control key to make it get smaller. Moving on, There's also changes to the way that the token vision versus player vision works. So from here, I've got 4 pillars and a throne that are attached to walls. So when this guy runs behind, runs behind the throne, say, I have them set to 50% for the alpha over, right? So that works well. But when I don't have them selected, oftentimes the default for Foundry would be, this, where just don't show any of the columns, right? Or 50% or full, right? So that you can control sort of the current GM setting with these icons like you could before in the last version. But there's also a new button here in the main menu, and that is whether or not to follow the currently selected token. So maybe you have a lot of bad guys that have vision turned on, and every time you click them, you kind of lose sight of where you are, and you always have to deselect. So if you as the GM don't want it changing and just want it left on that GM setting, you can go and click this button here, Auto Hide Bases on Token. You can leave it on to have it like assume the vision of the token you select, or you can turn it off and just have it it'll stick with the default of the scene here. So if I put it on 50%, which is where I normally leave it, and leave this turned off, now all of them are at 50% and it doesn't spend the time popping them on and off. So that might be useful if I'm navigating and it's getting complex. The next one is the link tile feature. To explain the need for this, I'm going to jump over to a scene here where you can actually see the thing that was causing problems. So in this scene, there's actually a secret door. The secret door is right there. Right? Can you see that? There's a secret door right there. And it's attached to a wall. Right? So it's attached to the secret door wall that's down below it right here. And then there's other walls around it. And the problem comes that the token culling feature, and let me go and make it so that everything seems like that. So the token culling feature makes it so that as this character walks around, once that secret door is out of line of sight, the tile that's associated with it is going to pop away. So you see that when I turn the corner, there's a spoiler there for the player of your game who realizes, wait, why did that wall flicker on and off? Unlike all the stuff around it, let me go back. That might be a secret door. So if you don't want that, the way to fix it is now there's a new setting when you go in. So if I go in, select this, and click it, there's a new setting here called Link Tile. So I can go and link and select some other tile that I want it to follow. So I'm going to select this one here and hit Update. So now, instead of using its own line of sight, it's going to use the larger tile's line of sight. And it will stay on and stay visible for that player even when I round the corner. And it'll only go invisible when the main thing around it goes invisible, like that. Right? So here, of course, this player hasn't seen the square behind that, so that'll be fine for the player. I've tested that. So here, now that secret door is much better hidden. And you could use this for more than just secret doors. You could use this when you just have like, a lot of extra details or a lot of extra tiles, and you want them, like maybe get paintings on a wall that you had, and you wanted them to just follow the wall. You don't want them flickering on and off and distracting people. Anytime you want to kind of one tile to follow the behavior of another tile. And the nice part about this is that actually, if I right click on the door to unlock it, and then I open it for the players, right, then it is still going to, for the player, it's still going to behave like a door when it's open. It's only when it's closed that it's going to take this behavior like that. So that's really awesome. The last feature I want to get into is masking. So this is an advanced feature. It's going to take a little bit of you playing around with it, and I think it's going to be a really powerful thing for some of the creators out there making some complex scenes. And maybe even if it advances a bit, will be a quick and dirty way to make the scene more real and more 3D without having to make a whole bunch of different separated assets. So first of all, if you're just using masking, remember the prerequisites. You need to have token vision turned on for the scene. You need to disable global illumination for the scene. You need to have a token that has like player vision, right? That has the token has vision and it's assigned to a player. And you need to have other tokens, which are going to be the ones that are masked behind tiles. So the purpose of masking is to have the tokens kind of get grayed out, or the portion of the token to be grayed out for what is behind the tile. And this allows like some illusion of depth in the scene and helps players understand whether somebody's standing on top of something or standing behind something. Specifically, masking will make it look like they're standing behind something. There's a couple of different ways to turn this on. One, you can take any tile and you can turn on the mask tile check mark, and that'll make it so that it basically becomes the shadow that something stands behind. Or it'll do auto masking for anything that is a wall, anything that is a tile that's attached to a wall, to show like where is its bottom location on the screen, so anything that steps behind that will start being masked. So there's also a handy utility in here for converting a drawing into a tile, so that you could just sort of draw the shape that you want to be the mask and then convert it into a tile that has the mask tile turned on. And that can be a useful way for you to quickly kind of add some depth to a scene. Though one warning I got given by the developers is that because it does sort of render that tile into the scene data, that's a lot of data. It can make the scene file very large. So when you're not using that scene in your game, you definitely want to shove it off into a compendium. You don't want to have it in your right-hand sidebar in the scenes folder, because it can take up a lot of space, and that has to get loaded up every single time somebody logs into your Foundry server. So it can be a lot of data transfer, and you want to avoid that delay. So you just shove it in a compendium, and it won't be part of the thing that the players load every single time. So switching into a demo here, I've got two versions set up. So this is my player, right? And this token has vision, which is the most important thing to show here, right? This token has vision. And then these Dragonborn, really great art from Isometric Worlds, are set up to be the tokens that are going to be obscured. And you can see here, when I move this artwork, you can see that the part of the Dragonborn that's behind this block shows up as like this gray outline shadow. That is the masking feature being used. So these are two versions of it being used, and you can see they show up slightly differently because one of them is just masked tiles and the other one are walls. So in this version on the left here, I'm going to get out my tile tool and I'm going to drag it around. I've got, and let me show it. So I've got two copies. One is the actual mask, and they disappear a bit. So one is the mask version here. If I double click on this token, you see that it's got a mask tile set up. And the other one is like the background art, which I just have as a tile there. So it has sort of a mask object here that is going to be used to compute the mask location, right? And if I move it and then move this thing around, you're going to see that the new mask is the new location. So imagine I had a scene here with a bunch of tiles, or maybe it was hard cooked into the wall here or something. What I would be able to do is I would be able to make a copy of the tile or drag out a piece of art that is about the right shape and convert it into a mask by double clicking on it and then opening up this mask tile setting. If I unclick it, it's going to show back up. Click it and it turns into a mask, and you can get the masks to show up by clicking this button in the tile bar here that makes the masks visible and not visible. It's not super sticky, so you might have to click it a couple times to get them to come back. But here, you can see once this is set up, that looks pretty good. And I've got two of them set up here. The disadvantage of having them just be masked tiles is that there's no sense of like what's in the foreground or background. Everything's going to be in the foreground. So any tile, any part of it that goes behind any of these, so the head, if it was being super accurate, should be in front of the back one here. But the body is looking correct here. So this is quick and dirty. That works just fine. But the smarter way to do this maybe is what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and turn on half masking for these. And I've got two walls here, two blocks that are actually rigged as walls. So you can see that I've got a solid wall and then an invisible wall here. And the tiles are in fact rigged to the wall. So attached to wall asset is set for the two bottom walls that are right there. So automatically, if you've got auto masking turned on, automatically it's going to compute the Dragonborn here with the mask. And it's because the Dragonborn, it's like centroid, is above the wall here. So the center of the Dragonborn, the anchor point, is above the bottom wall here. But it's below the bottom wall here. It knows that the mask should be turned on only for the body, but it doesn't need to turn on the mask for the head, because that it assumes is in the foreground based on the center of where the Dragonborn is. So that looks a little cleaner. It still, you know, blinks in and out a little bit, right? This is a sort of new feature. We're excited to see it develop and get more mature. So you get some really nice effects here, and I'm looking forward to it being tuned over time so that its behavior is super predictable, and maybe they kind of can get it to be very performant. But already in this first state, I like the way that it's looking. I think I'm going to use this feature. What do you do if you don't actually have a separated art asset for what you want? So here's an example where I have a boat, and I want the character, you know, when something goes over the boat, I don't want it to look like it's behind the boat, because, you know, the boat isn't something you crawl underneath. But I do want when someone goes behind the sail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so all those red sails are effectively something that you can walk behind. So the way you can do this is with that new feature where you can draw in a shape and have it be the mask by converting the shape into a mask. So I'm going to do a real rough sketch here of the shape. Remember, it's D&D, you don't have to be perfect. Right? It's just for fun. I'm going to draw the shape really quickly, and then I'm going to select the shape, and I'm going to fill it in. So turn off the alpha, make it solid. So now it's a solid shape. And when I right click on the shape here, there's a new button there that converts it into a mask. So now it's actually a tile. Cool, huh? It's actually a tile, and the tile has the mask turned on. So if I hide the masks, and I jump over to like a player view, so let me got this activated. Let me log in as a player. I've got the GM's view on the left, and I have the player's view on the right. So the GM here can take that drawing that got created and just hide it by right-clicking on it and hiding it. So now it'll kind of show up for the GM, and it'll hide for the player. And so when the player with the vision is down here, let's bring in a monster and see what it looks like for the player. So I've got a beholder back here. So let's bring the beholder in. And as the beholder moves in front of the boat, it stays above the boat. But as the beholder moves behind, you know, the sail here, you get that look. And that should work really well. And then, of course, I want to animate this beholder since it's got so much personality. So let's go and remember to use that mirroring setting. So it's a mirror. I need to click that reverse mirror update. And now let's animate this guy a little bit more. Have him play peekaboo behind the scene there, behind the sail there. Right, that looks great. And you get a lot of real tactical kind of understanding of where this guy is. So I love that. That's great. I think that's about it. So those were the new features, and I hope everybody has fun playing around with these. Definitely hang out in the Grape Juice Discord and show us what you make, show us your game. And if you're looking for isometric content, there's lots of links all over the place. And there's lots of like creators channels in the Grape Juice Discord. If you're looking for free stuff as well, some of it's listed on my website right there. All right, take care.